Texas mom who is facing eviction after an intruder broke into her apartment and she shot him will be allowed to stay. In an update that I want to bring you to an article I covered just a few days ago. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News.
Wallace was notified after shooting someone trying to break into her federally subsidized home, who turned out to be a 14-year-old, that she was going to be evicted.
The apartment called and told me that I was not supposed to have a gun at all, even though I kept calling them and telling them somebody was breaking in. They told me I could not have a gun and that I have 30 days to vacate.
State law, though, says otherwise, and our reports caught the attention of Central Texas Republican State Rep Carrie Ising.
It made me very angry. No one should be denied their Second Amendment right just because they live in public housing.
All right, so I have an interesting article for you today, and it's going over a story I just covered a few days ago about that Texas mom who was involved in the shooting of someone who was trying to break into her daughter's bedroom. Okay, this is a crazy story. So it's a single mom living in an apartment with her 4 children, and somebody comes breaking into the window. Not only did they come breaking into the window that night, but less than 24 hours earlier, someone had tried to break in as well. So, she had a gun and she defended herself. She defended her family, shot this intruder. Unfortunately, the intruder passed away. I say unfortunately, but you know what? This kind of person, do we have to lose our lives? Do our family members have to lose our lives before we decide we have to take this person out? I mean, that's just my opinion, okay? We should be allowed to defend ourselves. I'll just keep it pretty simple with that, okay? But the apartment complex she was living in, which was subsidized housing, they apparently had a rule that said that, you're not allowed to have a gun up in this building, so we're going to push to evict you. Imagine that, trying to push to evict the tenant who protected herself from an intruder breaking into her daughter's bedroom, okay? I mean, goodness, okay? 100% wrong in every way. I'm going to call out this landlord for doing this garbage because that should not have been even thought of. There shouldn't have even been a thought on anyone's mind, okay? This was clear cut, self-defense. People need to be able to defend themselves regardless of where they live. And it's complete garbage. And you know what? I found out today that the state of Texas actually has a law that says that landlords cannot ban tenants from owning a firearm in order to defend themselves, okay? So, the landlord was 100% in the wrong because of Texas state law. So, yeah, quite an interesting situation. So before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like, subscribe button, maybe leave a comment down below and let me know what you think. So, I'm just curious what you think of this landlord who would even do this, okay? It's like they have no brains sometimes, I don't talk negative about landlords very often, but when you're trampling on people's constitutional rights, when you're telling people they don't have the right to defend themselves, well, you know what? Maybe you deserve to be, people to talk garbage about you because you're an idiot, okay? And I just do not agree with your policies. I don't agree with the stance you took in this situation. And I'm glad that the news media and politicians and countless others finally made you, stand up and look like the fool that you are, okay? So anyway, let's get into this article. Nice update to an article I already covered. This is coming from fox4news.com, and it says, Fort Worth mother facing eviction after shooting intruder will be allowed to stay. Yeah, good for her, okay? But, as I mentioned before, I do think that, there might be some sort of retaliatory action. And if nothing else, right, if she has had her apartment broken into so many times, maybe it would be better to get the heck out of there. I mean, maybe not immediately, but, start looking for somewhere else to live. So let's get into the article. A Fort Worth mother who's been fighting eviction since shooting an intruder will now be allowed to stay in her home. In December, Aaliyah Wallace shot and killed the teenager who was coming through her young daughter's window. It was the second burglary attempt at her apartment that day and the 6th in a span of a few weeks. I have 4 daughters. It's just me and my 4 daughters that stay there. I just was protecting my daughter, she said. I'm devastated that he was 14. I hate that. I literally do. And I'm so sorry. But at that point, I had to think about my babies. I didn't know he was 14 when he was on the other side of that window. All I knew was that somebody could come in and hurt me or my kids. That's it. Yeah, and I know she's focused in on the fact that this is a kid. This is a 14-year-old kid. But keep in mind, right? 14-year-olds have committed all sorts of heinous crimes before. So don't think for one second that, oh, well, just because this is a kid breaking into your apartment, that, nothing was going to happen to your family, that, oh, you were going to be okay. No. There's a very high likelihood that something very negative could happen, especially if you've been broken into 6 times and, one previous time within the last 24 hours, okay? This kid panicking, could attack one of your kids, and them being much smaller than he is, well, guess what? They could end up hurt or worse. So, yeah, I don't want to see that sort of thing happen. You made the right call by, taking him down. And you know what? I don't care the fact that he was 14 years old. You got to do what you got to do to protect your family, period. Fort Worth police did not file charges for the fatal shooting. A grand jury will review the case. But the managers at Wallace's federally subsidized housing apartment complex still told her she would be evicted for having a gun, which was prohibited by their lease. The apartment called and told me that I was not supposed to have a gun at all, even though I kept calling them and telling them somebody was breaking in. They told me I could not have a gun and I have 30 days to vacate, Wallace said back in December. Texas law seems to be on Wallace's side. In 2019, lawmakers passed a bill that forbids landlords from prohibiting apartment residents from possessing a gun. So right there, okay? Right there, Texas law says that she's allowed to have a gun, that you cannot put in your lease that your residents cannot have a gun. It is a constitutional right, and it sounds like it's a right in the state of Texas specifically. Okay, so you're in the wrong. You trying to evict this lady is just, talk about negative publicity, something that could have easily been resolved by just using common sense. And it seems like too many people just don't have common sense. It just makes no sense whatsoever to even have told this lady, who just, took, she just was involved in this horrible traumatic incident. And you're like, oh, well, by the way, we're going to evict you now too. Whoever did this is a moron, okay? A complete moron. And goodness, this story just angers me so much. It just pisses me off. And I feel like smacking the person who tried to file eviction against this lady upside the head. Like, what are you, stupid or something? Eviction proceedings were dropped after an attorney who advocates for renters' rights got involved and a state representative questioned whether Wallace could be evicted. Regardless, Wallace feared an eviction or a legal battle would keep her and her daughters from finding another place to live. State Representative Carrie Isaac saw the story on Fox 4 and began fighting on Wallace's behalf. And it says here it's a Republican from Wimberley. I don't know where Wimberley is. I'm not from Texas, right? But, keep in mind, this is a Republican, okay? And, Republicans, they fight more for the gun rights, the Second Amendment rights, the rights that we have to defend ourselves. Just reminding people when you go to vote, okay, you see that R next to their name, but if you want to actually be able to defend yourself, if somebody's trying to break into your home, you might want to consider that when you're making your vote. It made me very angry, Isaac said. No one should be denied their Second Amendment right just because they live in public housing. It's unconstitutional. Isaac and other lawmakers worked with Texas Attorney General's office and the Department of Housing and Community Affairs. This week, the apartment complex told Wallace she could stay. The eviction has ended, but the ordeal is not over. The fact that there will not be an eviction on her record gives her some time to figure things out and decide where she goes next, and without suffering the penalties that come with an eviction. In this case, an illegal one, said Mark Melton with the Dallas Eviction Advocacy Center. And, for once, I'm on the side of one of these tenant rights attorneys, okay? For once. So yeah, this was an illegal eviction. This went against state law. This went against national law, and it went against common sense too, in my mind. So I feel for the lady for being put through this horrible ordeal, and then on top of that, facing eviction, even though it was just temporarily, and if she was able to get it canceled, didn't she have enough stress already? Okay. So yeah, like I said, if I was in her shoes, I'd be looking to find somewhere else to live. If not, for the safety issues of people breaking in your place, but for the fact that, hey, the management here, they don't care about your safety, and they all kick you to the curb as soon as they can. They don't even pay attention to the state laws. Goodness, it's just not the right place for you, in my opinion. Okay, so I'll put a link to the article in the description below, and in the comments, tell me what you think of this whole story. Okay.